All right, so back on this thing, finally got around to Michael's schedule and my schedule, working out where I can go down there and get this thing dialed in after the 6L90 swap. So I did the 6L90 swap because the last time I was down there, it had the 160,000 mile 6L80 in it it was a Summit Pro LS converter. I think it was a 3200 stall or something. I think they are about an $800 converter, but I mean, it's not enough to handle all this. So anyway, it wasn't very happy with the power, and I barely made it home with that trans and converter. So I got a 6L90 out of a 2500. It has a slip yoke. I had a custom one-piece drive shaft made. The cross member needed to be moved back 2 inches or something. And then everything else hooked up and worked. I got a Circle D triple disc in it. And got everything ready. Again, we finally had time to get down there again. His schedule and my schedule came together. And so I just kind of eased it on down there. And if you saw in the last video of this thing where I cranked it up and it kind of got when that surging, hunting up and down and everything, and then shut off, or I think it shut off. But anyway, real aggravating. As soon as I got down there yesterday and pulled up, he's like, yeah, first thing we got to do is fix that idle on this thing. So if you recall, when we tuned it, it was set up on speed density, and he was wanting to have it set up where it run off the mass airflow sensor, and then when the mass air ran out, he wanted it to transition to speed density, and then I couldn't make it work, whatever. So when he was trying to make it idle, once he was in mass air only, it ran perfect. It was so crisp, revving up. The idle was nice and steady, because apparently on the E38, when you run it in speed density, it only runs off of one timing table, and it doesn't use the adaptives to control the throttle body and everything to help it idle. So he was trying to get the running airflow values with the mass airflow on and what timing it wanted to be at and everything. And finally figured out that, and if you go in the engine diagnostic trouble codes, what you do is you go to the mass airflow trouble code, and instead of fell on first or fell on second or no error reported or no check engine light, whatever, you just put it to no error reported. So then what happens is it runs off the mass airflow until you get to however many hertz that it can handle, which is, I think, is 14.5 on this one. And then it fails the mass airflow sensor and then goes to the SD tables and runs off of that. So instead of letting it go all the way to 14.5, we failed it at 8400 hertz. And so now it runs and drives so much better now, because the E38 relies heavily on the mass airflow sensor. So it cranks up and idles a lot better. Drivability is so much better now, and it doesn't have that hunting and surging and all that stuff. And cruising is it's a whole lot better now. So we were both glad to figure that out, because like I say, trying to get it to run in only speed density, it just wasn't working. It wouldn't idle right, and it wasn't as clean and crisp as it needed to be. So anyway, we're very happy to get that taken care of. He played with the transmission, tuning on it and everything, got it dialed in, and this thing will absolutely fly. It's pretty fast. Like I think I said in one video, it didn't really spin the tires. Well, it'll blow them off there if you try. We were riding along, and I tried to ease on it and tried to get out there some before it knocked the tires off. And when I put it roll into it and then felt like I could give it some more, then it just annihilated the tires. And it just this thing will move. So real happy to see everything come together. Now with the mass air working, with the one-piece drive shaft and a good converter and transmission and all in it. So it's really set up well now, and happy with where we've come with it and all. So the fuel mileage, well, it is what it is, I guess. So his shop again is about 60 miles away, and I used probably about a quarter of a tank or more driving back home with it. But that's part of it. If you're gonna have a 1,000 horsepower car, it's not gonna get the best fuel mileage. But everything was done on pump gas still, because he doesn't have E85 down there, and if I fill up here, by the time I get down there, it's gonna get worse than whatever fuel mileage it's getting on pump 93. So and I really don't want to inhale E85 the whole way down there by having gas cans in the car. So we just dialed it in on the pump. People have been asking about the 4-bar map. I talked to him about that, trying to change it and all, and he basically said that it would knock us back to square one, and we'd have to completely redo everything. We'd have to get it back on the dyno, and we'd have to put a boost gauge on it, and then basically just scale and calibrate it and all. And apparently it's very involved. It's not just put the 4-bar in and change the 2 parameters, like you normally do in a Gen 3 computer or something like that. So he didn't want to mess with it, and I understand. I mean, because he had a whole nother situation on his end with. I thought I was the only one that had torque converter problems. He was having torque converter problems on a Mustang he had got. When I was at Summit yesterday, I messaged him and asked him if he needed anything, and he had bought a torque converter for a little Fox body Mustang he bought, and it was a TCI, and it wouldn't spline all the way in to the transmission. And so I got another one while I was up there, because I was going down to his shop with this. So I carried it down there to him. Same thing. It would go in and was about a quarter of an inch from seating all the way into the transmission. So, I don't know what's going on with these converters here lately, but so he had 2 TCIs that just wouldn't go all the way in. So that was in his where his dyno is. He's got a lift in front of the dyno, so the car was on the lift, so we couldn't get to the dyno. So we were just gonna drive and street tune it, because you can't really tune the transmission on the dyno, because you can't feel it. It just doesn't really work. I mean, you can kind of, but really when you're driving and can feel what it's doing at speed and all that stuff. So that's what we were doing, was getting the mass airflow dialed in. So we did a few pulls on that. The mass airflow, just a couple pulls and you can have the mass airflow dialed in. And then we were doing the VE table, so where it failed the MAF, and then switched over that transition, and then with the cutouts and everything. So we finally got everything dialed and blended. Like I say, this thing will absolutely ride out. So I was going to try to get some videos, I know, but he drove it when we first got down there just to kind of check everything over. And I've never ridden in the passenger seat of this thing, and it is quite different from being in the driver's seat. It felt like an elephant was sitting on my chest and he was only, part throttle pulls with it. So, and then I was driving, and the low beam headlights on these cars suck. Apparently, I don't think I have a vehicle with a good set of headlights in it. But so I was driving, and he was logging everything, so we couldn't really get any video, and it was dark. You couldn't see anything anyway. So I'll try to get some soon. But like I say, this thing is an absolute animal. I'm really impressed with how well it just puts the power down and goes. Once you get in it right, at the right speed and everything, and just stand on it, and it just hooks and goes. I mean, it feels incredible. It really pulls hard. So happy to get all that together and all on this, and got another surprise. Hopefully do a video on it next week. That one's been a long time coming, so I'll be happy to see that one, and then we'll get to experiment with that, and that'll be the first one I've done. So like I say, hopefully I'll get started on that next week, and once I get some progress and all on it, I'll do a video on it. But anyway, that's that for now. Like I say, it runs and drives and feels a whole lot better with a good transmission in it, and being able to have the mass airflow, controlling things at idle, and drivability is so much better. But that's that.